Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ya salam. Afwan للتأخير ya jama'ah. In the words of the poet, "मैं देर करता नहीं, देर हो जाती है." So, ya salam. Bismillah. Inna alhamdulillah wa kafah. Salatu wassalamu ala rasulih al-Mustafa wa ala ibadihi alladhina irtada wa man bihudahum ihtada wa bi athari ahli al-Madinah iqtafa wa ba'd. Fassalamu Allahi ala al-qawm. Ahlan wa sahlan bikum wa marhaban ya jama'ah. All right, so Afwan, I was trying to go live and then, it's always the same, some technical issue actually. So, whilst I was trying to go live, my PC, um, I couldn't figure out some of the settings had changed because since I'd gone on here a while and it just took me so long to to quieten down the fan speed. It had such a khair. Right, Bismillah, Bismillah. Right, so Allah, Allah. Hi, Fahad Ji. Love you too, Yar. Allah bless you and keep you smiling. Ameen. Right, yeah. It's been a while. Things, as always, things are kind of going on, really, I guess. But I do intend to, inshallah, start. I say that, and whenever I say it, something's always distracting. But I do intend to have more regularity. There's a comment here about Christmas Day. I don't know about Christmas Day, but before New Year's, let's do another. So, like, let's say within a week, yeah, after this, and khair. Right, shukran, shukran. Hi, 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 Fahad ji. Kya baat hai, yaar. This is your love, I guess. All of you. Allah keep you all blessed. Right, Bismillah. It has been quite a fascinating weekend, really. So, yeah, Allahu Akbar. Huh? From before zeroing in on this debate, I want to review this debate between Javed Akhtar and Mufti Shamail. And it was on the existence of God. Does God exist? So it's a fascinating, I think, not only pioneering, groundbreaking debate that took place, because, yeah, it really is in many ways unprecedented of its nature. Where you have a person like Javed Akhtar, who is so renowned, somebody who is a poet, concerns himself with literature, apparently concerns himself with academia, but clearly didn't show in this debate. He is somebody who comes across as very sophisticated, a self-expressed atheist, somebody who often can take stings and these kind of digs at people of faith. So he'd accepted a debate with a Mufti who now has risen to celebrity stardom. But I think prior to this, I don't think really many people had heard of Mufti Shamail. So Nadwi, he's from Nadwatul Ulama. But this debate was just spectacular in the sense that Mufti Saab really just, wow, did a number on Javed Akhtar, and you didn't expect that. I don't know. I think everybody expected Javed Akhtar to like really, pack some punches, but he didn't. And he seemed so underwhelming and ill-equipped philosophically to even engage the platform. And on that note, we've seen this, I was saying, weekend, um, in that vein, uh, beginning with Jake Paul. Ya salam. I don't know what I find all of these people so annoying. So Jake Paul miserably put in his place, which I think, thank God. And Tommy Robinson, Allahu Akbar. I was really, it brought delight to my heart to see Ty Mitchell put him in his place. And I think it brought uh, peace to the hearts of believers and just sound-minded people worldwide to see that. And Ty Mitchell interrupted a interview somebody was giving him, and he said, "Look, don't give this twat some airtime. He's a racist, a bigot, he's an Islamophobe, he hates Muslims. Here he is in a Muslim country. Look at the irony in Dubai." And I did see online that he got then deported from Dubai. So I'm not sure if that part's true, but I saw certain posts online showing that he got deported. So that also, it brought coolness to the eyes and hearts of just people of fairness and faith, I think. And in addition to that, Andrew Tate, right? Somebody has become so annoying over, it's been a bit of a long day. I do that sometimes. If I got a cold drink, I'll put it on my eyes. So Andrew Tate, wow, what a humiliating defeat, and really just an expose of himself. I found it so just, I don't know, revelatory, how embarrassing. It's one of those things that, like, when the person came to Imam Malik and Imam Malik said, he said, if the shaitan wanted to humiliate you, he couldn't have done a better job than you've done to yourself. So it's a bit like that. I feel Andrew Tate just humiliated himself just in record-breaking. He went up against a YouTuber that, I mean, for God's sake, the guy clearly that he's going up against cannot fight. And he's getting knocked out. The guy's swinging punches like from here. You could see them coming a mile off, and he's just taking them in his face. It's like, isn't this guy going on about being the world kickboxing champion and all this about fighting? And he carried an awe that people, you see, sometimes when people don't know you, they don't know you so closely, and then you, in his case, have a title. Oh, I'm the world kickboxing champion. Then you always talk about fighting. It gives the confidence makes people possibly back off, thinking, kuch ponchi which he had here. He must be some ruthless fighter. That's how he. And then it's like, wow, he embarrassed himself, and it's like, acha, that acha, cha, cha, Mia Joseph. There's that old where this imam goes in, this person with a big buggery, big imam, he goes in to speak to a Maulana to ask him a question. And as he goes in, the imam Sahib is sitting, relaxing, and he sees this, sits up. He says, yeah, this Allama has come to ask me. And this person sits down, and he's got all this aura. And he goes, I want to ask you a question. And he says, and the Imam Sahib says, sure, do you mind if, what's your name? Could you अपना तारुफ ज़रा कर सकते हैं, आपकी तारीफ, what's your... And he goes, my name is, people call me Mia Jusuf. Not even Yusuf, Jusuf. So the Imam just kind of stretches back out again and goes, cha, 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 cha. Mia Jusuf, ahin Jusuf. So it's a bit like that. And yeah, so khair. So it's been an interesting, revelatory few days. Yeah, in line with that, people, Allah bless you. Look at this. Right, we've got peace and love from Colorado. Hi, hi, hi. Colorado, isn't that the state of the Connecticut? Isn't that the Connecticut shade wrapper for cigars grown in Colorado? Are they not? Allah, Allah, that. Wow. So हाय हाय फहद जी कहाँ यार शर्मिंदा कर रहे हैं आप स्वैगर हाय हाय ब्राउन कहाँ यार. But yeah, so moving on to this debate, I think it was really interesting. It's under 2 hours, I think, the whole debate, including Q&A. It's the first time I've seen a debate in that desi world, if you like, that is so for the most of it dignified. None of this shouting, and it's almost dialogical. I mean, it's getting there. It's not an entire dialogue, but it's almost dialogical, and that is groundbreaking. You can't... And people thinking that, look, people of faith will get rinsed. Hi. This faith, people, it is not lavaris nahi. There's people, as in the words of Ibn al-Mubarak, the legend of hadith from the time of Imam Malik and Imam Abu Hanifa. He's from the first wave muhaddithin, if you like. And when he was passing away, they said to him, they go, Ya ibn al-Mubarak, man li hadha al-ilmi ba'dak? Who, what's gonna come of this affair after you? Yaar, tere baad kya hoga yahan pe? This is... And he says he's on his deathbed. And he says, Ya'ishu lahal jahabid. Allah. Legends will be born for it. Yaar, he's like, kya baat karte ho, yaar? You think this deen is, that there will be legends that will rise. And they did, the second wave muhaddithin and so on. But that's, we see even in this debate between Javed Akhtar and Mufti Shamail, it's fascinating that Javed Akhtar, got absolutely annihilated. And, he was really just evidently not only punching above his weight, he was so underwhelmingly prepared. And it just reminds you of what does the poet say? That हमारे बाद भी रौनक रहेगी मक्तल में. Allah. Maqtal is the kind of battlefield, but it's the place where, people are slain. In Arabic, it comes from the word qatal, maqtal, the place of qatal. हमारे बाद भी रौनक रहेगी मक्तल में. हम अहले दिल को बड़े हौसलों में छोड़ा है. Aye. That's the legend Muhsin Naqvi, the poet. So, yeah, he says that even after us, there will be a glory. A kind of... Ronak is also that kind of a glow and a glory, a light as well, that even after us there will be glory in the battlefield or in the maqtal, in the place where people are slain. Hum ahle dil ko bade hauslon mein chora hai. That the people of heart, we have left them in an elated spirit of mind. Allah. Sada sukhi rahe chehre, wo hum jine mohsin, bujhe gharon ki khuli khirkiyon mein chora. Hai Allah. Hai, what poetry does to a person, huh? Yeah. So, yeah, what I want to do is go over this debate and then also tap into some arguments. I want to share with you certain arguments that people, I'm not sure what they kind of what I've kind of put together for the proof for the existence of God. And I call them the big five. And I'm sure, in places I've leaned into other people, and some of them have probably been cited, and some I think I've not seen as much really being cited. But these are the modern arguments for the proof of God. This is what I'm putting them as the big five. I should actually compile a book on this, shouldn't I? Ab jo AI ban gaya. Now that we have that, Allahu Akbar. So, right, the traditional, the old school, the classical arguments for the existence of God, for the proof, you have Aristotle's. So I'll just give you some highlights and I'll talk a bit about the debate as well. So the main classical arguments were things like you have the teleological argument, which is the argument from design, that things have a design, that they seem to have a purpose to them. And therefore, if they have a design, there must be an intelligent designer behind the design. This in theology is called the teleological argument. This didn't come up really in the debate between Javed, Akhtar, and Mufti Shamail, but that is one of the classical arguments that when I look at things, I can tell there's a design to things, that things work in a certain way. So there must be, it shows there's an intelligent design. The second argument is known as the prime mover argument. This was Aristotle's argument, the Aristotelian, and it's really an argument from about motion and kinesis. Things are set into motion. So everything, including the celestial bodies, the planets, you name it, whether we're seeing the sun in motion, it's the earth, I guess, but the sun too is in motion, as we now know. The moon is in motion. Everything is in motion. Motion, I guess, in some ways is also in one perspective, it's what by which we identify time. And I guess entropy too. But the point in which one could say entropy is an element of, or a manifestation or motion in one dynamic. Right. So Aristotle was saying that if things are moved and are in motion, then they could not have moved themselves. Something has moved them. So if something's moved them, and then what's moved that, and then this would just go on. So there must be an unmoved mover. This unmoved mover is Aristotle's argument. Okay, this is the Aristotelian argument, the unmoved mover. Now, Ibn Rushd and many of the Islamic theologians further, they kind of used that as a springboard and came up with one called the cosmological argument, which also is known as the Kalam argument. In the Kalam argument, similar to the unmoved mover, is the one who's moving everything, because otherwise there would be infinite regress. Infinite regress means something, and this does come up in the debate, that which just goes on forever. And that is logically flawed, that something would just go on into a kind of ad infinitum. So this prime mover, the mutakallimin, the Muslim philosophers and theologians, they put together the cosmological argument, which is that all things, not just being moved, but seem to have something that created them, a kind of cause to them. And this thing that created them, it would just, or caused them. So we're not just talking about motion. Aristotle was only speaking of movement. We're speaking of things bringing into existence, whether we're going to see the chair is made out of wood, which is made out of the tree, which is from the seed, which is from. So everything goes back. There must be a point where there is an uncaused cause. So, like the unmoved mover, there must be the uncaused cause, the first cause, the primary cause. Because the primary cause cannot be from the series of causation. This is known as the Kalam argument. This, in some way, was brought in this discussion between these two gentlemen. So you've got that coming in. There is another argument, I'll go into some. There's the ontological argument, which was not brought in. The ontological argument is the argument by Saint Anselm, and that was that God, by definition, is that than which nothing greater can be. So God is the ultimate. And because we can conceive God, and this is the necessary definition of God. So it was a logic argument. He was trying to say, well, God by definition is something that is the greatest. And necessary requirement of that must be to exist. Otherwise, how can it be the greatest? So he was almost going in from a semantic argument, and trying to say this is, in philosophy, they call it a priori, or sometimes an analytical statement, as Kant would say. So statements which, like if I said, all bachelors are male, but really the word bachelor kind of carries the word male in it. So even if I didn't say that, you could figure that out. So now in this sense, what he was saying is that, and Saint Anselm, that look, God exists in the minds of people, and God, by definition, is that than which nothing greater can be. So if God exists in the mind but doesn't exist in reality, so like let's say there's an apple. I've got a picture of an apple in my mind, and you've got an apple. Then the one in my mind can never be greater because it doesn't. The one that exists is obviously the greatest. Like if I'm just saying, sure, I could think of one, but I need it to exist as well for it to be, for it to have like a double plus plus. Otherwise, it's lacking. And so his point was, because God is the ultimate, the greatest, existence is a necessary requisite of being perfect. Because otherwise, if there's no existence, God is imperfect. So it was a bit of a semantic argument. It didn't come up in this debate, and often it doesn't. And it was challenged by even, Saint Anselm was a monk, and in his time, he was challenged by other monks as well, who said that it doesn't really. They gave the example, well, just because I think of an island, does it mean the island exists, etc. But khair, coming back here, the Kalam argument was used in a way to do with the contingencies. And I'll explain this because it really took up so much of the dialogue. And I was quite taken aback that Javed Akhtar, he just admits that, look, I don't even know. He goes, मैं ईमानदारी के साथ कह रहा हूँ कि मुझे समझ में ही नहीं आ रहा है कि what you mean. I don't even understand what you mean by contingency. And that's quite wow. To say something like that is quite, for a person like Javed Akhtar. And I'm sure he's got the Richard Dawkins Award. It goes to show the Dawkins Award can't amount to much, can it? He goes, look, I'm going to be straight up with you. I don't even know what this contingency means. He goes, "Ye to mujhe samajh mein nahi. I don't even understand the English word." And then when he explained it to him in Urdu, he goes, look, aap Hindi mein, Hindi mein mujhe samjhaye. So he explains it to him. Right. So he goes, right. Well, what is this? Right. So he goes to him, look, he explains it to him. And in some kind of, he's trying to explain it to him in some kind of a way, and he still doesn't get it. So this comes up a lot in the debate, so it's worth understanding. They use the term contingent beings, a necessary being. So a contingent being is something which is dependent upon. That's what it means. And a necessary being. But really, in the Ilmul Kalam tradition, in the Muslim Kalam tradition, we are taught this in ways like this, in a different way. So even though that is the Kalam argument, but it's a slight nuance of it, because the contingency argument in Arabic, we would refer to this as the mumkinat. You see, something is possible. So for example, this world exists. It's possible it didn't have to exist. Would you agree? So just like anything, I could say, look, this tree exists. It was possible it didn't exist. That's at a micro scale. But you go on a macro scale. This universe exists. But it's plausible in physics that this universe didn't have to exist. In fact, matter and antimatter are of equal proportion in essence in the beginning. So something now, and obviously antimatter would have cancelled out matter. So if something is possible to exist and equally possible that it could have not existed, then there must be a determinate will or power that pushes it into existence. Because if something is possible to exist and possible not to exist, like if wujud and adam, wujud is this being and adam is the absence of being, are equal, then the thing doesn't, you need a determinate, something that will, a will or a power that will preponderate the mumkinat into the mawjudat, into that which is contingent or that which is possible, into that which is actual. So to actualize it, we need something external to it. Because otherwise, it doesn't make sense. Because if something can exist and also cannot exist at the same time, like it's plausible that something is possible and at the same time its absence is possible, then there must be there must be a factor that determines its actualization. So this is the contingency discussion that keeps coming up in the debate. Right, so we've got, and this comes up a lot, and so I really wanted to explain that. I hope that makes sense. So it kind of ties into it's like a nuance of the Kalam argument, which is really to do with first cause. Kalam is slightly different because Kalam is talking about things, everything having a cause to exist. So like this is made from ceramics, it's made from pottery, it's made from this, that's made by that, that's made by water, which is made by chemicals, which is made by molecules, which is made. So that's kind of tracing back an origin, a cause to bring that. And although one could, by a nuance, say, well, that is the mumkinat debate as well. Sure, could be. One could say, well, that for example, this could have existed, and equally, its absence was plausible as well. So yeah, from that side, it's a nuance of the Kalam argument. But really, when they're speaking about the mawjudat, the mumkinat in Ilm al-Kalam, the theologians are really speaking at a kind of cosmic level. The cosmos is what the philosophers said was from the mumkinat. It didn't have to be, but it was. And therefore, because it didn't have to be, both its existence and non existence were plausible. So it's like 50-50. So what pushes it one way? Whatever pushes it must be an independent determinant of will and power that brings it into existence. Just as I said, with the Big Bang, they say that with matter, antimatter and matter are of proportionate symmetry. Then there was an asymmetry that had to have happened for matter to preponderate. And even if it was at a tiny level, so the mumkin and the ghair mumkin, or they usually say the mawjood and the ma'doom, that which is and that which is absent of being, are both equal. There's a symmetry. So for things to come into existence, the mawjood there must be an asymmetry. It must preponderate. Now, khair, this debate, it went on. I really loved the way Mufti Shamail, he, his opening. So there was an opening clause to the debate. So um, I think they have 5-10 minutes or something to give an opening, like an opener. And he really laid out the framework. I loved that. He said, look, the discussion today is, does God exist? He said, this is not about, he said, what do we debate? He said, like, how do we prove this? He said, we can't prove it through scripture because Javed Akhtar Saab is an atheist. So he's not going to accept scripture. So I will not be citing any any religious literature, any scripture. Secondly, he said God is not, this is not restricted to Islam here. I'm speaking about God as a universal. It doesn't matter what religion and faith are ascribing to God, whether it's Christianity, Hinduism, whoever. The ultimate being of God, that is what we're discussing. We're not discussing is it Allah in the Islamic concept or God in the Christianity concept or God. This is God with a capital G. And so he goes, so I'm not going to be, so that's the first point. Does God exist? And I'm not going to be using scripture. So he should not be using scripture to come at me or analyzing because, there's no point. He said, well, what about science? And he said, God is not the inquiry of science. It's not from the maqasid, of the objectives of science. Therefore, I will not be using science to explain this, which was, I think, a beautiful point that he made because he said, look, science is about empirical data. And God is not something testable. That doesn't mean that God doesn't exist. It's a different question. It's a different overlapping magisteria. So and he gives the example, which I thought was great. He said, like, if I had a metal detector and I'm looking for plastic, now the metal detector doesn't pick up plastic. So if I was to say, oh, therefore plastic doesn't exist. But no, it's that the detector is you're using the wrong tools and instruments. That's not what a metal, it's not. So exactly the field of inquiry for science is not God. So he says, I won't be using science, and I expect him not to be wasting time with science either. Then he says, well, by what can we prove God then? He says, we can only prove God as a mutual arbiter between us. And that is by reason and logic. So by the voice of reason and by logic. So this is what I will resort to. And I expect him to resort to that as well. He did say that I think he should, don't waste time with resorting to the morality argument. But really, in all fairness, I think that is their argument. So I think we can't say don't resort to it because that is the horns of the bull when it comes to believers versus disbelievers. So we can't really say that. Although he did say that, oh, don't use the morality argument against me. But I felt that was, obviously he wasn't going to abide by that. But I did feel that wasn't really philosophically fair to try to stipulate that, because that is what atheists will use. And they've used that since time immemorial. So all the ulama of Islam in the past, they contended with those arguments. So we expect them to use that argument. So we can't say don't use that argument. Khair, the discussion began, it unfolded. Javed Akhtar Saab really was, he couldn't really come at it with anything. His main thing, he kept resorting to the morality argument, saying that, look, and this is known as, these are the theodicies, in when you're discussing ilmul kalam theology, the theodicy, that you see, if God, in his simple way, he was saying, well, if God exists, why does evil exist? This argument, broken down in its format, is that, see, what they've tried to say to people of God or people of faith is that if God is all loving and if he is all powerful, then evil shouldn't exist. So if evil does exist, then either he's not all powerful or either he's not all loving. So this is the argument. They didn't really quite narrow it down with that precision in the dialogue, but that is the precise argument. They kind of loosely, Javed Akhtar kept loosely throwing in, look, oh, why is there suffering in Gaza then? Why are babies dying? And he also touched briefly into natural evil, which we call in theology or philosophy, they will call it natural evil. So you have two types. You have moral evil and natural evil. And what that means is natural disasters. So they're calling it evil, but that's just the word. So things like earthquakes, hurricanes, tsunamis, things where no person, but they're causing destruction and death. That's called natural evil. And then moral evil, where human beings are causing suffering of other human beings. He briefly touches upon natural evil, not that much. It doesn't expand much. Javed Akhtar, he does touch up repetitively on moral evil. That why is there suffering? The response given to this is usually more or less all, consistent by people of faith. In Islam, we give it, even Christians, other people, they give a very similar response. And that is the response of free will, that Allah has given insan free will. If he is to intervene at every point, there would no longer be free will. Right. So there would be, yeah, there would be no free will. Now, this point that I guess to Javed Akhtar, because there isn't really, he's not new in this discussion. This discussion's been going on for, God knows, over 1,000, possibly, a couple of maybe 2,000 years or more. So this discussion that, look, there is free will, their argument is that, well, God should intervene if he exists. And because he doesn't intervene, therefore he doesn't exist. Which is their point. To people of faith, Allah gives free will. I don't like, by the way, in between, Mufti Shamail made some points where he said things like, you see, this is part of a bigger picture. I don't like that, and I do find it berating of, I do find it almost, at, at the very least, uncomfortable, if not uncomfortable, unsettling, and even, very difficult to bear, that people, this kind of thing that, oh, babies are dying, so there's a bigger picture to this. I think that's a very inaccurate way to put this, and even maybe disrespectful. The truth is, it is just free will. And yes, you could say it's a test for people, but it's not being, you see, it being a test is secondary, tertiary. By its circumstance, it's become a test. We put it like that. Not that it is a test by default. So it's not that God is saying, because Javed Akhtar then picks up on this point. He goes, oh, to aap keh rahe hain, so God is killing these babies to test you guys. That's absolutely wrong. People are committing massacres and genocide. Those are the people doing that. Their actions result in becoming a test to see the courage of other people stand up and voice justice. And where often humanity fails, unfortunately. So it's not that this is by its primary action a test. It becomes that, okay, by its unfortunate consequence. So there is a big difference in that. And it's not so I don't really and then I think Mufti Shamail did retract on some of his wording as well, because he kind of gave these examples of, oh, if you have a children sitting a test and if the examiner was to give them the results, would he be helping them? Or and then he gave this one example of, look, if you take a child to the doctor and he needs to give him a jab, an injection, and there's a bit of pain in that injection, but you got to go with the good sense of the doctor. And this was really a poor example. And because then Javed Akhtar does kind of go at him at that. And then he has to retract that and he has to apologize. He says, I don't, I want to retract that. Because he says, so you're saying, so this is like an injection. So God is killing these babies as an injection. And that's really a very poor way of putting it. And we don't put it like that generally. Muslims shouldn't be presenting it like that. But yes, it is the exercising of free will where it becomes devastating. By consequence, it becomes a test. Not that it was a test by default. So that's that. I did like the angle that Mufti Shamail brought in. And I don't think generally people bring that in. He brought in the recompense argument for morality, because why does evil exist? And he said, well, you see, the evil exists regardless of whether you believe in God or don't. So those who don't believe in God, well, to them, the people who did evil got away with it. But to the faithful, they will be taken to account. So there is a recompense argument. And so at least that gives a kind of a fuller picture or more to the picture than just those who deny God, because to them the evil's happening as well. So he said, like, if you take Gaza now as an example and what Netanyahu and the IDF were doing, so to the atheist, well, they're just doing it and they've got away with it. But to the believer, they will be taken to task before God. So even if they think they got away with it in this dunya, they don't get away with it in the akhirah. So there is a fuller picture to look to. And in that sense, I think this isn't usually people don't, or I've not come across them arguing it in that, with that nuance in that way. So I give credit to Mufti Shamail for that. That's a unique angle of bringing that. So yeah, that was good. Other than that, Javed Akhtar made some silly points. He said things like, oh, look, all people of religion. Right, somebody said, is there some parts I may be missing that were if so, do drop a comment and I'll pick up on it, just in case it's kind of my ADHD brain. Hi. ADHD, huh? It's a blessing. It's a blessing. It's a superpower and a curse, I guess. But I do love it, I won't lie. The only thing I hate about it is the procrastinating part. But coming back to the discussion, Exhibit A, ADHD. Right, so he says, Javed Akhtar says at one point, look, Acha, all the religions in the world believe in all these things. They've all got scripture. Why is there no dinosaurs mentioned in the Quran? Why is there no dinosaur in any scripture? Are you telling me God didn't know about the dinosaurs? Why did it take us now to know about the dinosaurs? And this was really such a silly, uh, this was like a 12-year-old's argument, right? So and Mufti Shamail answered it very well. He said, show me a book on mathematics that mentions dinosaurs. Because does that mean that dinosaurs don't exist? Or the people who wrote the book on mathematics were ignorant of dinosaurs? He goes, but the theme and the topic of those books is mathematics, and it's not dinosaurs. So the theme of Revelation is not dinosaurs. The theme of Revelation is it's the book of God, and it's to connect people with God. It's not about connecting people with dinosaurs. So I would have gone a step further and said that the Quran does say, "Siru fil ardi fanzuru," go explore your world, people. And in fact, Allah says, "Fanzuru kayfa bada Allahul khalq." How did Allah begin creation? Go travel, traverse, explore. So I feel that that's that's something. He did answer that very well. Then there were certain points on equality. He was trying to say, well, if you look at countries where there is more atheism, there's more equality, there's a sense of justice, there's a sense of, and sometimes that, things may appear a bit that way, but I would say that is a very cropped view of the present state without analyzing history. There is no denying that, colonization or colonial history yielded the power dynamic that the West had. There's no denying that. And that's not to go into saying, I'm not trying to play victim here. What I'm trying to say is it would be incredibly naive to deny that. So to say, well, it is true that a sense of affluence is often correlated with a sense of liberality in views. There's no denying that there is a sense of people, a greater sense of liberalism and freedom of thought, often correlating with affluence in society. But where, you take history, just our recent few centuries, where India was nearing, I think, 30% of the global GDP. And then by the time the British have looted, ransacked, raped, starved the Indian subcontinent, it's simply responsible for 3% of the world's GDP. And all of a sudden, Britain has become this elite superpower at one point, on top of the entire world at one point. There's no denying it only did that by ridiculously looting the resources of these places. So yes, when affluence comes, it does bring with it the luxury of a kind of liberal mindset or freedoms. But let's not be naive that came at a ridiculous cost of barbaric colonial brutality. So it didn't just arrive by, enlightenment. It wasn't like, the Buddha sitting under the tree and they became enlightened. They killed millions of people and then sat, the fire of enlightenment was on the ashes of millions of people. So khair, this argument was presented as well. Once again, I feel that was an argument from emotion. Other than that, they really, I did love the overall kind of decorum that was maintained, the kind of general respect that was given. I really have to give it to the moderator, because moderators are usually, for the most part, useless. I feel that they either biased, they have an axe to grind, This is why, as a person, I've always felt we need to rise even above this and get to a point of dialogue. That we should be able to have a dialogue as two grown adults, always having a dialogue. And even if at times, voices go up and down, but they should be self-regulated. Now, Khair, this, even though it had the moderator was spectacular. And there was a point where some guy in the audience asks a question, and he says something like, right, he brings a point, and he says this question, let me give you an example of what this would mean. So if you had the guy just stops him because, listen, nobody's come here to listen to you. He says, we're here to listen to these two. So if you've got a question, say, don't try to teach us. He says, don't give a lecture. We're not interested in any lectures. And I thought that was spectacular. You really hit that on the head. Right. Right. So yeah, I was just checking if somebody had put some of the so these I did love the section at the end, the format that they allowed cross-examination, that they could cross-examine one another. That was very mature. I liked that. Ah, kya baat hai yaar. That was yeah, I did like that. Other than that, the debate for the most part was, from the atheist side viewpoint, it was underwhelming because he clearly wasn't trained. He wasn't even, he was an incredibly lightweight atheist. He's somebody, yeah, ye to, you've come way over prepared for somebody like that. But I do long for the days, what people should be able to do is have a debate. You know what? Have like a reasonably, like a good timed out, let's say, cigar. I Let's say that's going to take a good hour, hour and a half. You could go with a good Toro or a Churchill size, and you have your discussions. It's very cerebral thought going into that. I feel, inshallah, these times will come. There was an interesting point where Javed Akhtar, he's asked a question by Mufti Shamail. He says to him that, where do you say morality comes from? And Javed Akhtar goes, look, जानवर दो type के होते हैं. There's two types of animals. There's those who are solo, live isolated, and those who live in groups and herds. So the group and herd is what is responsible for this myth of of morality. So Mufti's Shamail says, okay, so it's people come up with morality and society. And he goes, yeah. So he goes, okay, so if society says, killing is okay or rape is okay, or society says this, you wouldn't have a problem with it. And he goes, no, I'm not saying, oh, of course I'd have a problem with it. And then he says, well, okay, Nazi Germany, for the most part, the society all agreed with it. So was that okay then? Because the society agreed with it. So Javed Akhtar says, nay, you have to look at the people, not just in the society, but people on the planet as a whole. So then Mufti Sahab says, okay, so we've gone from society to the planetary people, majority. So he says, well, as a planet, majority of the people on earth believe in God. So therefore, it would be immoral not to believe in God then. And he hammered him on that because Javed Akhtar was just making he was making a laughing stock out of himself. He did also highlight that there is not a morality amongst animals. There is, there is a low level sense of justice that animals recognize. Mammals do recognize it. There's been research on primates that do understand fairness to some level. Like they have a concept of fairness, they have a concept of exacting revenge and retaliation. And there's been studies, Franz de Waal, who is one of the leading primatologists in the world, has several books on this. And I think in the past I reviewed one of them as well. I think the bonobo and the atheist. But they show in their studies that when, for example, we're living within a group of primates, when one chimp had, so they're all part of the same group, um, and they could be something like, let's say, up to 50, anything, give or take. There could be that many chimps even living in a whole group. So when one chimp had not deathly, but had assaulted or attacked, let's say, it hurt. Yeah, hurt is a better word. Had hurt another chimp. That chimp's sister then, in the following day, went and hurt that the perpetrating chimp's sibling. So she kind of got his brother back or his sister back. But it was interesting when they were observing that it wasn't like there was method to what they were doing. It wasn't just randomized anger. And so they were taking exacting that they had a sense of fairness. And even when monkeys, so some of these chimpanzees, when they would be given favoritism, so they had a hierarchy, they had rules that they have to follow. So let's say the alpha goes and eats first, and then the other chimps, like there was like a pecking order to how they come and can eat the food. They can't just all go together. They have like an order to they have a method to their madness, if you like. So and what I'll tell you what's fascinating, I'll just come back to that point, is they saw that there was one. So if any of the chimps violate the rules, so let's say when it comes to food time, the alpha chimp goes first, and then the others, and then the rest of them. But if, let's say, some of the teenage chimps or the other ones decided to go first, they would beat up and discipline that chimp that did that. It was unacceptable. They would beat them up. And what they found interesting is that they would allow infants, like if an infant did it, they would ignore it. But they also, this was really intriguing, what Franz de Waal found, that there was in the group, there was one chimp that had Down syndrome. And he wasn't an infant, but he was but he had Down syndrome. So that chimp, whenever he would violate it, they wouldn't say anything to him. So they could recognize he's different, like he has different rules, like he doesn't have to. So they wouldn't ever discipline or beat him up. So that was fascinating. So my point was, when Javed Akhtar, once again, when he was saying, oh, the animals don't have this, they do. This is part of the fitrah, but there's almost degrees of it. And humans are at the pinnacle, what we have. Obviously, they don't have it to that level. And really, the morality argument, I often find this is put forward in not the most powerful way that it should be put forward. The truth is that with the morality argument, the way it is that there is a base morality, a base instinct of morality that is in our fitrah. That base is coupled between, it's like a construct of two key things. One is that we can identify harm, so we can see what harm is, and the other is empathy. So these two put together are the kind of the baseline of this argument, and then that is nested in the sanctity argument, okay, or the sacredness or sacrality is in there as well. So that we do sense intuitively that there is a sacredness to human beings and to life as a whole. We do tend to, especially humans and even other life, we do feel intuitively there is a sacredness to it, and especially humans. So this is really all our morality is, and the rest is shaped by our, let's say, society, by teachings, by faith, by um, social ethics, by other things. It's allowed, and this is why in Islam we would say that لِكُلٍّ جَعَلْنَا, Allah says, shir'atan wa minhaja, that we gave different shari'ahs to different people. So it's not that, oh, one ruling is, so let's say alcohol is haram for in Islam. It wasn't haram in other times. It wouldn't have been haram in the time of Nuh alayhi salam, or even, let's say, or arguably maybe not in the time of Jesus or other prophets, let's say before that. So these rulings, these ethics change over time based on a society and based on, and Islam or faiths would regulate that in accordance with uh, the era in which they're revealed. But the base morality Allah has placed as part of our fitrah. So, and this is the argument that really atheists would be stuck on. And this never came up in the debate, but I'll present it to you guys that this, and then I'll present to you the modern. So these arguments I was saying before are the classical arguments, but the modern, let's say, arguments that we have today, the big five, which I've kind of which I tend to put forward in my personal discussions with people for the, if we can say, the proof for the existence of God. But before that, this thing of the sacredness, the sacrality, the sanctity argument, this is separate, but this, we, to an atheist, how can you justify anything being sacred? Is not sacredness the realm of religion? Because for something to be sacred, where would you get this sacredness from? Like, how does it become? Because to be sacred is to almost be transcendental. And where do you get that from? Because otherwise it's just arbitrary. And you can't say it's based on function, because function is more utilitarianism. It's not a sacredness. So if I would say human beings recognize the sanctity principle, that they recognize sacredness, and they definitely recognize the sacredness of human life. So one question would be, why is human life sacred? Why? And any argument you say to prove it, it cannot be biased or prejudiced. Like anything you say is, well, you're going to say that because you're a human being. And if you say, well, human beings are so intelligent, human beings are this, human beings are sentient, human beings can express themselves, human beings have culture, but let's say an alien species came, and to them, let's say to them, they're much more clever and intelligent than us. So we are to them like how pets are to us. Then how would this argument stand to them? It wouldn't stand. Like, why is human life sacred? So they couldn't care less. Like they'll say, not that intelligent. To be fair, AI is possibly more intelligent than many people today. So even though it doesn't have general intelligence, but it is the way we look at intelligence, it's more intelligent. But let's say an alien species was much more intelligent. So how do you posit the sanctity of life, of human life? Well, this argument must be transhuman. It must be transcendental. Otherwise, human life doesn't have any sacredness. It just has an arbitrary intersubjectivity, like we've just agreed on it for the sake of it. But the truth is, we don't just rationally, we intuitively believe human life to be sacred. The just looking at spilt blood sends shivers down the human spine, because, and it's not just that there is something so existential that recognizes the profound sacredness of that. So that is an argument that really atheists can't answer. And the first time I came across that argument, although I totally can't stand him now, that's Jordan Peterson, but I'm grateful that he came out with that argument. And that was the first time I heard him, and I think he said it in a debate with. It kind of came out, I think, impromptu in a debate with Sam Harris, and I don't think he even realized how powerful the argument was that what he was saying, because he didn't really capitalize on it whilst he was saying it. And I remember listening to it years ago and thinking, damn, that is so powerful of an argument. And then I'm thinking, wait, I don't even think he realized how powerful that argument is, because he should have hammered that point in, but he didn't. Khair, that's that. So overall, I think it was a spectacular debate. In the sense it was groundbreaking. These are how we should debate and discuss. We should move on to dialogues, right? We should move on to having, even when we disagree, when people within Islam, when they want to disagree on things, when people have all kinds of arguments, whether it's the age of Aisha, which I can never understand why some Muslims push that so hard, that they are the greatest. It's like with good intentions, they've really are hell bent on leading Islam to the slaughter. It's like, like lambs to the slaughter. It's like they, with the kindest of intentions, are so destructive in their in their mission. Khair. But we should learn from this and emerge to have dialogues, maturity, like I said. I'll add to this with some arguments for the proof of existence, for the existence of God. And these are the big five that I would present. And these are like, you've got the classical, you've got the teleological, the cosmological, the prime mover, you've got the ontological, you've got all of those. Those are more the classical arguments, hundreds and hundreds of years they've been around. These, what I would argue, you see, to me, why do people believe in God? So they don't really believe because of those things. I've never met a person who's believed in God because the cosmological argument or the teleological argument. These things just reinforce our beliefs. Like they help us they give like a parameter to our faith. However, why do people actually believe? The first point is the existential intuition argument, that we have a deep, certain intuition which we can't escape of the existential. This is the truth. Like the person, you could go out there in a desert and come across somebody and you ask them, why do you believe there's a God? They say, I know it because I know there is a God. Like, know how? Intuitively, they feel God. This existential intuition, it is undeniable. So in psychoanalysis, and one way of looking at this is the big other. In psychoanalysis, the symbolic big other or the big other. Our psyche is designed for the big other. It's not designed, it is made, it is that way. The big other is inescapable from a psychoanalytic perspective. We all experience the big other. We all experience the gaze. We all not the gaze as in GAYS. Yeah. Hopefully we all don't experience the gaze. We experience the gaze, GAZE. GAZE, gaze. So the gaze. We experience the that almost that we are on this theatrical stage where we live up to expectations of, perform to, act out, and we all do this at all times. And we go into, we talk to, at times when people are on their own, they talk aloud, they talk to things, they will talk, let's say, to a person as if the person is there. Like, let's say something was on their mind, they'll be like, oh, well, why do you... People will do this. People will talk to inanimate objects. Oh, what's wrong? Come on. They'll, God damn it, talk. I gave the example once in a discussion. They'll talk to the car when it stalls. Like, come on, God damn it, start. Who are you talking to? This is engaged with the big other. It is inescapable. People act out according to the big other. You'll see a person who, let's say you're going somewhere and you realize, oh, I've forgotten my keys. But then there will be almost a larger than life acting out of... Now, some of that may have been real, but there's no denying a large part of that is an act. It's performative. I mean, really, are my keys going to be stuck up here? Like, and even if you do have a pocket there, I mean, when's the last time you put your keys up there? So it's almost a performative manifestation of, hey, I've lost, I've forgotten, I'm missing something, my keys, my phone. Who are you performing to? The big other. In psychoanalysis, they call it. It is undeniable. I mean, it's just people don't understand these things. Otherwise, if they understand the dialogue of what's being discussed, it's something, it is so a priori. Right now, okay, so the existential intuitive argument that we believe, it's as if we can feel, हर जर्रा चमकता है अनवार इलाही से, हर सांस ये कहती है मैं हूं तो खुदा भी. What is he saying? That every atom, it reflects and mirrors the light of God. Every breath cries out that if I am, then God must be. This is one argument. The second is the illusory quantum reality argument. That, you see, what quantum physics has shown us from a physics perspective is that quantum physics has shown us that everything we understand to be real, it's how Niels Bohr said it, that everything we call real is made up of stuff we can't call real. We have understood that 99.999% of everything is empty space. Atoms are mainly non-existent. So this whole reality, this whole world is mostly 99% not here than it is here. Now that's crazy. It's a mind-bending realization, but it is true that this world is actually more khayal-like, more dream-like than it is real and concrete. So that does away with reality. But we do believe that we have, you see, this quantum reality is tied into a certainty. Because one thing we have is a certainty of us. So we almost have, you see, and we are pursuing certainty in life. In fact, what we tend to do is pursue we try to escape as much uncertainty towards as much certainty as we can in life. And one could equate this to the pleasure and death principle, because in this dunya, we can never attain ultimate certainty. Ultimate certainty would be God. And that's why death is called al-yaqeen in Arabic. So, because it is that certainty by which we will get to certainty. So, you see, so to an atheist, knowing that, well, don't you believe within that this is real, but you know this is more dreamlike than real. So by that reason, by that understanding, it makes more sense, it preponderates as a proof that if all of this is here almost in a dream state, that there is a God. Because if this is all illusory and dreamlike, then where is it? What is it? So this, and I would say, I would kind of give I would like a footnote argument to that, the Boltzmann brain argument, that you see statistically, as Ludwig Boltzmann, he was a physicist, leading person who contributed so much to physics and statistics, and he has an equation named after him, and contributed to the laws of thermodynamics, and in their understanding, that is, and statistics. He came up with understanding probability, that what is mathematically, because the atheist will say, let's go with mathematics because it provides a sense of certainty. Mathematically, it is much more probable that we are just a brain somewhere, a Boltzmann brain, either one large brain or multiple brains, making up false memories and realities, as opposed to us actually being here. That is much more probable mathematically than this. Yet here we are. So either we're actually not here. What it does is, this is such a thorn because it problematizes from a statistical, mathematical perspective our reality. It problematizes it for the atheist. So and it problematizes for everyone, but at least if you have a belief in God, you anchor it, because then to the atheist, even this reality is more probable that it's false. That's the Boltzmann brain. But this, you could say, is all coupled into that the illusory quantum reality argument. I would say the third of the big five is understand intelligibility of being. And that is that being itself with a capital B has an intelligibility to it. This is crazy, because intelligibility is that it is all that being itself emerges with an intelligible, to be digested from an intelligent perspective, to be understood. The ontological nature of being has an intelligibility to it. So this is actually, I find this a very compelling argument. And I would say from our perspective that this is when Allah loved to see his majesty and glory, and the first primordial being, the logos, or the first creating principle, the haqiqatul haqa'iq, or the haqiqatul ula, or whatever you want to call it, emerges. This just beingness emerges, and it mirrors to Allah his glory in the Ibn Arabi mystical understanding. From this, the A'yan Thabita are born. And I understand A'yan Thabita to mean meaning is born. And you see, because meaning is intelligibility. And the fact that being has meaning inherent within it, that is, it doesn't make any sense otherwise. Otherwise, that makes zero sense. So that is a very compelling argument, because to the atheist, meaning should not be inherent, it should be randomized byproducts. So this is the third. The fourth argument follows on from that. It's really Wheeler's argument, the quantum physicist, that that it is from bit. That information precedes matter. So even when things are growing, the protein must be coded where to go. DNA precedes life. DNA gives a coding, where the protein should go, what should happen. This means that the information, the bit here, as in the information bit, using bit like that, precedes it. This argument to me is a compelling argument from the modern arguments for the proof for the existence of God. I think it's very difficult getting out of that one. That data precedes matter, and not just matter, it precedes existence as we know it, which is crazy of things, because that means surely there's an intelligibility to that, and it ties in. And these obviously are kind of, one could say there's, they share roots. And then I would say the fifth is consciousness. You see, the consciousness being an irreducible fundamental of reality. That these are the big five, which are the modern arguments, I would say, for the existence of God. That they are very difficult to, I think, explain, and they tie into physics, quantum mechanics, quantum physics. They tie into psychology, psychoanalysis. They tie into all of these, science, in that sense, in that kind of loose sense. So, and philosophy, of course. So to me, the big five, these, so if we were to look at the existential intuitive argument that almost everybody has, and the fact that we have this, that if you, that people would, they without a doubt believe, like they don't, you see, to them, you can't just deny reality. And really, one could say, you've got, once again, the Boltzmann brain argument in that as well. The second being the illusory quantum reality, that where reality is really more not 99.9% not here, yet we believe it to be so. So either all of this is, or it's because it's all very dreamlike, so it makes a lot more sense that there is a God, you see, because if everything's dreamlike, then, and it's really not here but feels here, so how do you answer that as an atheist? So really, you're in a dreamlike state. And then once again, like I mentioned, the Boltzmann brain statistical argument from mathematics. Boltzmann in the end committed suicide. But that's and then you've got the intelligibility of being, then you've got the information argument, because information in the universe is the conservation of information is necessary. It's one of the laws of thermodynamics. That's not be broken. Information must stay. So the bit precedes it. This is a very powerful argument. And also consciousness. I feel that is an irreducible fundamental of reality. And once again, we can't really get our heads around consciousness. So these are the modern big five. I hope that's been of some interest and help. What I'll do is I'll share the link. Let me see. Um, right, and maybe we could probably have, if let me see, am I right now? See, they change all the you give it a but I thought I'd come on, share this and pick some of your brains as well. What is going on? Khizar Hussein. Wa alaikum assalam. Khizar, is that Kaiser? Is that I'm just wondering, is that from years ago? We did Arabic together. Is it? I wonder if it's you, Khizar. If it is, wow, it's been ages. I hope you're keeping well. Yeah, so I've shared the link and I think, yeah, this, yeah, there is something to this whole journey. I do tell you that from a real world perspective, I feel that age as well does bring people to philosophical inquiry. It does that, yeah. Psychedelics can help as well along the way, yeah. I feel there comes a point in a person's life. It's as Carl Jung said that the latter half of man's life needs the luminous, the awe striking to, yeah, to find meaning. It's not, I think otherwise it becomes difficult. Khair, let's see who do we have here. I've shared the link. Um, I didn't really add, but one could have added into those also the argument from language, because language really is a kind of synesthesia. We really shouldn't have language, should we? Like, when you think about it, we do, yet it doesn't make any sense that we have language. And the only reason we have it, or the way we have it, is because our unconscious mind is also structured like a language. So that's wild, when you think about it, because language otherwise makes zero sense. Like we can pull off, like there's so much going on with language. It's like a Wi-Fi software that we just tap into. Khair, we've got Saif Ar-Rawi. Assalamu alaikum. Saif.
Assalamu alaikum.
How are you doing? Alaikum salam. How are you
How
keeping?
are you doing, Mufti?
Allah be praised. Allah be praised. Awwalan wa akhiran. Ameen. I'm good. I'm good. Lillahi alhamd. What about yourself?
Alhamdulillah, Mufti, we're doing good, man. Recently, I don't know if you heard about what happened in Sydney, Australia, which is where I reside now. There was, this
Yeah.
unfortunate shooting,
Mm,
which has been
yeah.
a bit of
So
a difficult time for the Muslim society here.
Allahu
So
Akbar.
that's
Allah
that's
make
been
it easy.
keeping us busy, unfortunately.
And I feel that also to a great extent, at least globally, uh, that the tragedy, well, obviously it's an utter tragedy, the killing of all those people, a travesty, a kind of brutal act of terror. But the fact that the gunman was taken down by a Muslim, Ahmad al-Ahmadi, I believe,
Yeah,
really salvaged the what was going to be another brutal onslaught against Muslims as a whole. They're just going to blame Muslims now. So, and unfortunately, because there's been a history as well of, I'm not saying this was or wasn't, but there's been a history of false flag things in the past where often Muslims are just always held collectively responsible. The fact that this Muslim saved, or what had happened, but at least he took down the gunman, risked his life, became a global hero, not just a national Australian, a global hero. People have flooded in with their thoughts, prayers. They've donated, I believe, a few million to him as well, and he deserves
yeah.
that and much
He's
more,
he's
man.
a
Mashallah.
millionaire now. He's a millionaire.
Yeah,
Subhanallah, it's just hikmat Allah, the wisdom of
yeah,
God, that
wallahi.
the person who went and took the gun from from the
Yeah,
shooter
you know,
happened from
wallahi,
the shooters. Yeah, it's
وَمَكَرُوا
just
وَمَكَرَ
amazing.
اللَّهِ. You know, the
I swear to
people
God,
plotting.
because
And
and it's funny
and
because
am I wrong in
Benjamin
didn't
Netanyahu was trying to say that
Netanyahu tried
he's
to
a
say he was
Jewish
Jewish?
person.
Yeah, see, I was about to say this. I said that.
Yeah,
Look at that, great minds, safe.
it is it is crazy, man. It
That's
was like obviously in terms of global scale, you know, these things happen, mass shootings happen a lot more in America, but
Allah,
here in
Allah,
Australia, it was a
Allah.
very, very big deal, and it was very disturbing, man. And I started seeing some of the locals or the so-called Australians, like the white Australians, a lot of the people that, you know, you thought they would be reasonable and accepting and all that, true colors came out very, very quickly when they knew that it was a Muslim who you know, who did the shooting, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But then the moment that it was revealed that Ahmed al-Ahmed is, I believe he's of Syrian origin, and he came here as a refugee somewhere in 2006 or
Allah,
something like that. And just the name Ahmed al-Ahmed, it couldn't get more Muslim than that. You know, a lot of people just went back to
Allah,
their,
you speak
they
the
went back to
truth,
hiding, man.
Saif. You do it. You're doing it. What is it?
Yeah,
السيف أصدق أنباء من القلم.
I
Allah,
swear to God.
Allah,
Hey, wallah,
Allah.
man.
That's it. See,
Alhamdulillah.
the poet says that. See, it's the safe. Safe also means sword in Arabic. Obviously, it's akhuna safe here, but it
Yeah.
speaks more clearly than the pen. But yeah, you've said that so well. Honestly, people, the name couldn't have been more Muslim, Ahmed Al Ahmadi. I'm pretty sure I saw a clip on social media, Benjamin, the bloody, you know, genocidal barbarian, trying to say, oh, it was a Jewish, thank God, a Jewish person. I thought, Ahmed Al Ahmadi, how is he Jewish? And
They're gonna
but
claim
yeah,
that as well, man. They claim a lot of
yeah,
things, you know.
honestly, yeah, salam. But you
Alhamdulillah.
know,
Mufti,
yeah,
I wanted to ask you a question, man. Just this has been keeping me very, very busy.
Allah, this
I'm
question.
trying to, man, it's a
And
difficult
questions
question,
should.
and
Oh, okay. Ya salam, ya salam.
well,
Ooh.
it's not scary, you know.
It's like,
It's just
ooh. Right. Okay.
you know, man.
What's keeping our brother Saif Arawi busy?
Saif
Mother
الراوي راوي الحديث راوي
Arawi, Allah. See, and the one that, what is it, replenishes the thirst as well.
That one, yeah. I actually tried to look up the history of Arrawi, the name of my
Oh,
tribe,
okay,
and some
okay.
people said it's the Rawi tribe. A lot of them were Ruwat Hadith, like narrators of Hadith, and some said no,
Oh,
because
mashallah.
the city of Rawa falls on one of the rivers in Iraq, so a lot of people that pass by, we would back in the day give them water, allegedly. I don't know. So there are two meanings here, you know. But
Allah,
yeah,
Allah, Allah. Well, it's a
the
slick, it's
question
an
that I
awesome
have,
name. Sounds cool. Safer
it
Rawi.
sounds
Look at
it
that.
sounds
Woof.
cool. Sounds cool.
Sounds so cool. Don't
That's
you think
what
so? You're
hadith
like,
or
who is this person? He goes, I'm Safer Rawi. Allah.
yeah, safe
You
Arawi.
better you better take this, accept it right now before this is the safe of the Rawi coming out.
Be careful, man. That's it.
No, mashallah. So yeah, what was the question?
Mufti, the question was about Hajj actually, and it's
Mhm.
uh, you know, it's one of the furud, one of the mandatory things as Muslims that we should do and we have to do. It's, I feel like I am one of the people that
Mhm.
I'm just gonna be honest. A lot of us, we do not prioritize Hajj. That's
Sure.
the question that I have, and a lot of
Yeah.
us would go to the ayah that says "Man istata'a ilayhi sabila," which means obviously you should go to Hajj
Yeah.
if you are able to. And a lot of us think, "Oh, I'm not able to. I don't have the money. I don't have the time." But then obviously a lot of us have the money and the time to travel elsewhere, which is
Mhm.
a bit of a problem. It's been a problem for me. So I started looking up Hajj a lot more in the last few
Okay.
months. I've started having this discussion with my friends, and I came across a video of the late Dr. Muhammad Shahrur, Allah yarhamah. So he
Okay. Yeah,
has
Mashallah.
said a very unorthodox opinion, which
What
he
does he say?
bases it on a verse from the Quran. that
Mhm.
I'm just going to read out the verse very quickly.
Sure. Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
It
Bismillah.
says الحج أشهر معلومات فمن فرض فيهن الحج فلا رفث ولا فسوق ولا جدال في الحج وما تفعلوا من خير يعلمه الله وتزودوا فإن خير الزاد التقوى واتقوا يا أولي الألباب. So if I could just translate it
Translate,
to
please. Yeah,
English quickly, it basically
of course.
means Hajj is well-known months, so whoever undertakes the duty of Hajj therein, let him not engage in sexual relations, nor commit sin, nor dispute during Hajj,
Mm.
and until
Yeah.
the end of the ayah. But the main point that has been problematic to me, it's why
Yeah.
does the verse say Al-Hajj Ashhurun Ma'lumat, or why does it say that Hajj is basically
Mm.
well-known months? We all know that
Yeah.
Hajj is carried out during the Hajj
Yeah.
season, and obviously
Yeah.
there are a lot of hadith that says Al Hajj Arafah, and that
Yeah,
if you miss
exactly. Yeah.
Arafah, then your Hajj is gone. So
And
I tried
yeah,
to
and
look up
really,
the
mm. Yeah, what did you
tafsir, the
find? That would be interesting.
well, Dr. Muhammad Shahrur says that Al Hajj, you can basically conduct the Hajj during the Al Ashhur Al Huram. So it's
Okay.
basically 4 months, as well known in the Islamic months, and obviously that's a very unorthodox opinion. The mainstream is that
Mm.
the Hajj has to be, yeah, you can start the Hajj in the Ashhur al-Hurum, but you have to be in Arafah on Dhul Hajjah, specifically on the 9th of
Mm.
Dhul Hijjah. So this is the problem that
Mm.
I'm having. Why does the verse say it's Ashhur al-Ma'lumat? Why does it say
Mm.
that you can basically do Hajj during the known months? And what are these
Yeah.
known months?
Yeah. Now
In
that
your
is,
opinion.
you see, so that is it. Now people will say, oh, well, Hajj has these months, like Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah, it has. But really, you're right. When we say Hajj, we're looking at really the 10 days, and really from the 10 days, the 3 days. You're going to go, just before Arafah, leading up to Arafah, you can have Arafah, then the day after, and then even really the stoning, some of these can be substituted, but the tawaf afterwards and standing at Arafah, these are really the main, the acts of Hajj. And the hadith saying actually just Arafah, Al-Hajju Arafah. So what how does this work? And so there's two ways of looking at this. One is, I suppose, how the traditional understanding, which is that, look, which is the main understanding, and I'm going to come back to that. I'll mention this, then I'll come to Dr. Shahrur's point, and then I'll bring it back with a bit of an elaboration. So the traditional point is when we say al-hajju ashhurun ma'lumat,
Mhm.
what was being referred to was that you could set off and do the ihram during those times, because now in the past it took people ages sometimes to go, and sometimes they didn't. Now, true, Islam hadn't spread the way it spread after the Prophet, but people were still sometimes coming from Yemen. The believe, people had embraced Islam right down to Yemen. They had embraced even, and sometimes they might be doing something like detouring. So they might be setting off for Hajj, but prior to Hajj, you had some, the Mosam, which is now called the Mosam al Hajj, but they actually had these 12 Mawasim, which were like almost like trade. Um, I don't know if we could say like festivals. Maybe we could say trade festivals or trade fairs. They had these places where and it would kind of go. I checked it years ago, so if I recall it correctly, kind of go clockwise. It would come around like that.
Mhm.
So they would start in the north, in modern day Iraq, but obviously in the past places like Hira and Busra, and these not Basra but Busra and these other places, and it would go round. It come towards Bahrain, and each month it would be in a different place, and each
Mhm.
month, and the one of Dhul Hijjah would be at Arafah. It used to be at Arafah, and this is why Arafah was then selected as that place where people got together anyway.
Right.
for the now. It could have been as well that some people, for example, they set off from, let's say, a place like Yemen. Now, but they're not non-stop walking. Because one could say, well, if I'm sitting on a camel and a horse non-stop, I could get there in, so many days or maybe like a week or two. Why do I need a few months? Why do I need 2 months, for example? Because sometimes they might have been going through a certain route that, okay, we're going to go off for Hajj, but we're going to stop at this Mosam, and we're going to finish that trade that we've got or whatever it is, then we're going to make our way. So to incorporate all of this, they were allowed to do the Hajj. The other thing as well is the Hajj brought the state of Ihram. You see, a lot of these things, by the way, today to us, we can't relate to. So we're trying to relate to them.
Yeah.
The Ihram brought to the Arabs a state of not global, but I mean to them universal, universal immunity. So like today, like let's say you turn up to a place and you wave a white flag, or you've gone with like peacekeeping in a way, or you've gone with, let's say, the UN have turned up into a place and they're wearing UN, or journalists, even though Israel bloody doesn't give a damn about anything. But let's say journalists are generally protected. You can't attack a journalist even if he's walking into enemy territory, so hostile territory. So the Arabs in the time of the Prophet had a similar concept with the state of Ihram.
Right.
In a state of Ihram, you were in a state of immunity. And to, ahrama. And what's interesting is haram, you see, because the verb in Arabic, the fourth wazn of af'ala yuf'ilu if'alan. This af'ala, one of its meanings is to enter into a state of.
Mm-hmm.
And so like amana is to enter into a state of aman, iman.
Yep.
Ahlal, but ihram and here haram, I know something haram we say for forbidden, but really, I mean, that is the meaning of haram as well. But the other meaning of haram is something sacred. And that's why often it was the sacred that was forbidden. And there is this.
Is it when they say like al-haram al-makki, that's also like
and they say as well, like in the Quran, al-masjid al-haram.
Yep.
In the Quran. So haram is, and just as like, let's say today, for example, in China, you've got the forbidden temple.
Right.
The forbidden there doesn't mean forbidden. It means like haram as in sacred.
Right.
Like, so al-masjid al-haram, it would have been the forbidden mosque. But so to avoid the confusion, a lot of people don't use the word haram as much, even though it's in the Quran, but they'll say haram instead.
Mm-hmm.
So to avoid the confusion between forbidden and sacred, but the word in its essence was that things that are sacred are therefore forbidden to violate. So now when a person ahrama, he's entered into a state of sacredness. So you cannot attack him, you cannot violate him, you cannot do this kind of, it's like we're walking around waving white flags. We've got a white flag on our convoy, on our caravan. Right. You can't, don't pick any trouble with us. So this also was a great opportunity for people that were gonna head off. Maybe they had a task or two on the way, but they could leave home in a state of ihram. So it's kind of, and you've got the reward of Hajj from the get-go. So it's like you're heading towards Hajj. So this person, we've come across that caravan, they're going towards Hajj, but they might stop here and see to something, or they might stop in that village where they know some people, but they are en route to Hajj. So it's as if they've got a particular passport, we're going to leave them alone. And that also, but at the same time, because they're in a state of ihram, then restrictions apply. And so sometimes that was another thing as well, that and that's difficult as well. You don't want to always, because ihram is more of a struggle then, because you can't, being in a state of ihram, you shouldn't be cutting your hair, doing this, doing that. So it's obviously a very difficult thing, but it's rewarding as well. You're going through this state, there's a reward in it. So this was one, I'm giving certain angles on it. the main angle being that people said the distance it took, all these months were allowed, incorporated, and then the state of ihram was an angle in there as well. Coming to Dr. Shahrur's point, Allah bless him. I do every now and then. It's been a little while. I haven't watched his videos, but every now and then before I used to love hearing. Sometimes his whether you end up being convinced or not was
Yeah,
irrelevant. But I liked the way he would try and be thought provoking, because I think
very
that's
much.
how
Yeah,
and so I used to listen to. I wonder what he has to say on this or say on that. And sometimes you'd be like, I'm not quite convinced. Sometimes you'd be like, actually, you got something interesting there. So this thing that Dr. Shahrur is saying, that technically Hajj could be in other months as well. Right. I think 1, 2 people have said that of late. I don't think the early tradition, or I'm not aware of the early tradition saying that. Once again, I can't say nobody said it, but what I can say is I'm not aware of it having reached us from anybody having
right.
said it.
Okay.
So whether
Yeah,
somebody said it, because sometimes it's true, laysa admul ilm ilman bil adam. Just
true.
because you don't know something doesn't mean you know its absence. So just the
Yes.
absence of knowledge doesn't necessitate the knowledge of absence. So in that sense, right, I'm not aware of any of it reaching us from the tradition that people held that view historically. I'm not aware of that they did differ on that. But recent times, I've heard this, like how Dr. Shahrud said it. I've heard it from 1, 2 other places. I know the Quranists as well nowadays do use it as well, saying that Hajj can be done in any of the, the 4 months or the 3 months or the months of Hajj, that they could go and do Hajj when it's not busy and come back. So
That's what
now,
Dr. Shahrur also says. Yeah.
yeah. So what I was going to now, that's their position. I,
Okay.
acknowledge that. I don't agree with it, and here's why. You see, I have this. To me, I have this realization of the Sharia that I'd like to explain to people as almost a quantum field, like a quantum theory, like a quantum mechanics theory of the Sharia. And that is that, you see, there's some things that we all accept are, like we said today, the sanctity of life and these things. But a lot of individual rulings, they're somewhat, they clearly are driven for maslaha. They're driven for, we believe they, as they say, that the ahkam are mu'allala in the Sharia, that they have an illa, a reason, they have a maqasid the Sharia, and they usually are there either li daf'i darar or li jalb al maslaha, to bring a benefit, or to, like, to stop stealing because it obviously causes harm, to do this. Like, there's a reason to these things. So now there's a debate, and this is a debate, by the way, so it's not agreed upon, that is there the so first of all, is there poetic sorry, not poetic, prophetic license of the Prophet to engage dynamically with the Sharia? That can the Prophet legislate from himself? Now,
Okay.
people disagree. I go with the fact, and that's several Malikiya and those that go with that the Prophet can legislate. And the evidence for this, actually, a Hajj example, when the person asks the Prophet, when do we do Hajj? And the Prophet said, in Dhul Hijjah. And then he said, Afi kulli amin ya Rasulullah wajib. And is it like wajib in every year do we have to go? And the Prophet said, Lo kultu na'am la wajabat. If I said yes, it would have become like, and then he kind of tells him off, like, look, like, when we give you certain rulings, just take them and go, and stop like trying to be over pernickety and trying to get into everything. Now, and there's other rulings as well where the Prophet is there and then in real time making adjustments. So hold this thought that there is prophetic license to to legislate in the Sharia. This then comes into, is nested in a larger equation, which is هل الحق يتعدد أم لا؟ وهل كل مجتهد مصيب? Does every mujtahid in a mas'ala are they all correct, or is there only one correct person? And this is part of the greater debate that are there multiplicity of truths or is there one truth? And there is a split between the fuqaha on this. Now, before, many years ago, I was very clearly, and I saw otherwise being absurd, I was on the part with where I think many people are, that the truth is always one, and the fact that only one mujtahid is correct, but the others are just rewarded for their attempts. But when I used to learn that decades ago, I read this in the books, and I read people like Qadi Ibn Arabi saying, Abu Bakr Ibn Arabi saying that no, there's multiplicity of truths, and I read people like, I'm sure, Qadi Ismail, the Don of the Malikiya, saying multiplicity of. I was thinking, what the hell are these? How can these great ulama not get this simple mas'ala? Like, I don't get it. Like, how can they be like, they're legends? How do they not get it? How can they see like multiplicity of truths? Recently, in recent time, it has kind of dawned on me, like I've kind of realized that actually there is a lot more depth to that issue. And that is that there's, for example, Subki in his Jama' al-Jawami in Usul has a mas'ala where he says that what is the truth? And one of the opinions he gives, like he says, well, it could be, we could say like the truth is always one. We could say, he's, he says, is the truth always predetermined? So, for example, there's only one truth, it's fixed, and the Prophet is teaching it. Or could the Prophet, for example, like the example we gave, he legislate? Now, he has one answer. He says, and one of the answers is, يُقَالُ لِنَبِيٍّ احكم بما شئت يكن هو الصواب. You rule with whatever you feel is right, that becomes the truth, as far as we're concerned. Now, hold that thought. We come back to the quantum. You see, this cup is here. That thing, this mic is there. I'm here, you're there. This is in the classical world. At a quantum level, all the subatomic particles are in superpositions everywhere. Then what happens is they say the wave function collapses and it appears here. So like this cup is here, but before it was here, in quantum physics, at a subatomical level, one could say it was everywhere. The superpositionality is that it's everywhere until the wave function collapses, it appears here. So this quantum field where everything can be anywhere and is everywhere, not just can be, is, I feel, not for the absolute essentials, but for many things in the Sharia would be like that they would be in a position of superpositionality. Then the wave function would collapse and the ruling appears here. So they are there for a maslaha, for our welfare. And in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the circumstances as well that were bringing them about, some of these rulings. Now, some of them are obviously, like, let's say, the sanctity of life and things like that are clearly anchored. So this isn't about everything, but it's about these general fiqhi rulings. So now when it comes to Hajj, when is Hajj done? Like this, once again, I would see as a fiqhi ruling. Now, I would say that, look, even if, let's go with the argument that Dr. Shahrur is correct. And let's say there were some people, I'm not aware of any, but let's say there were some people, ulama from the Salaf, that did believe that al-Hajj ashhurun ma'lumat, as in it could have been done in the other months. Let's say, hypothetically, I'm not aware that they did disagree, but let's say they did as well. I would say what's happened is where we're at now is the wave function, for whatever reason, it's collapsed and Hajj is here. And this is what the collective ummah has kind of now agreed upon. So, and because it's symbolic of unity and it's a ritual, it's not something which is about, it's not otherwise rationalized. It's like an ibadah. So I would state, as the hadith says, that look, ma ra'ahu al-muslimuna hasanan fahuwa inda Allahi hasan. So even if, let's say, we run the hypothesis that Hajj was valid in other times as well, this is where we found it, and this is where people have agreed upon it. So to me, that would be the accurate and correct position to go with. So to go against that, to me, wouldn't make sense in terms of the symbolic unity and the one of the main maqsad and purpose of Hajj. So yeah, that was quite I know I threw a lot in there. So beginning with how this is traditionally understood, from the journey to the state of immunity, universal immunity, ihram, to Dr. Shahrud's point, to then this how ahkam work and fiqh works, and are there multiplicity of truths, or is there just one truth, or is every mujtahid correct, to Jama' al-Jawami of Subkis, that the Prophet has been given this license that he can just give a rule, whatever he will decide on will be considered the truth according to the Sharia. From that perspective, and the quantum field collapsing, and the superpositionality. So with all of that, I know I packed a lot in there, but khair.
No, I completely get you. I just have I'd have just like two follow-up, or maybe call them objections, man. You know what? Because
Sure.
I've been like grappling with this for some time. I try to obviously refer to the Quran as the number one source of me basing any religious understanding that I have, including the role of the messenger, and if he is allowed to
Can I
give
just, sorry to
his
interrupt you. Sorry to interrupt you there, right? Somebody just said ijma. No, no, not ijma. I didn't say that.
yeah.
I said it's the reason that it is the occurrence. It's not an ijma. It is the occurrence. It is the understanding, and its maqsad is worship. It doesn't carry another. It's not like when you say don't steal, there's a reason. It's not a worship that you're telling people not to steal. It's because of the maslaha. The maslaha of Hajj itself is the ibadah and the unity. So
No,
therefore, so that
I
was,
agree with
I
you.
was just saying
I
to that
agree
to
with
that
you.
comment, not to the comment
Oh,
that
right,
said,
right.
"Oh, so you're trying to say the reason is ijma." No, I didn't even use the word ijma. So yeah,
People are not focusing,
sorry.
man.
Yeah, I mean it was a difficult one to follow, so I'll
No, I
I'll give
understand.
him that one.
I get it. I
Yeah,
get
but
it.
you
Because
were
sometimes
saying, yeah,
it's difficult. It's because, and back to the last point that you made, if the ummah has seen something and they have agreed that this is something hasan, and so that's what, even if you said hypothetically we agree with the hajj possibly being done through several months or 4 months in this case, but that the ummah is doing it at this specific time, but does that not, um, I understand that the ummah is doing it at this time, but me as a Muslim who's living in 2025, I think about it,
mm,
and okay, just because the ummah is doing it at this specific time, is that what Allah meant for it to be done in the Quran? Because there are a few ayahs that kind of throw me off in these things where the ummah is agreeing
you
to do
see,
something like, I'm just gonna read out the verse to you very quickly. وَإِذَا قِيلَ
yeah,
لَهُمِ اتَّبِعُوا مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ قَالُوا بَلْ نَتَّبِعُ مَا أَلْفَيْنَا عَلَيْهِ آبَانَا. I know in this context it's talking
yeah,
about a
it's not.
different ummah here,
Yeah.
but
You see, the
these kind
thing
of
is,
verses,
the other argument is that there is an unbroken chain of tradition going back to the Prophet's time, or the Sahaba, that Hajj
yeah.
would happen at this time, and people would in Dhul Hijjah, in the 10 days, be going. So you see, it's not, this is what I'm saying as well. If you were to catch, like, you see, the issue here, the only thing I could see here, the argument could be, is that one, there is an ambiguity to the verse, which I don't deny. There is an ambiguity to that, al hajj ashhurun ma'lumat. But the other thing is, one could be saying, well, it creates ease because there's so many people, I just want to get it out the way. But really, we do have, You see, things like, for example, why do we pray towards the Kaaba? Why do we do certain things in some ways? These are known as the manqulat zahira in Islam. These are the the living tradition that was being passed down. The living tradition, part of that was the Hajj, because it was an apparent act that was not, it was something that people. It's like doing the adhan. It was something that was apparent and being passed down. In the Hajj case, year after year. So it's not. Its practice, I don't think, is ambiguous in any way. But you're
Yeah.
right. This verse, if looked unrestricted, can create a sense of ambiguity. So I agree with you on that. Mhm.
It's also when you say that the Prophet is able to legislate in Sharia, right?
Mhm.
You did make that argument, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, in my understanding, and I'm sure you can tell a little bit here that I do have, not gonna deny it, there is some Quranist influence in me lately because
No,
I've
fair
just
enough.
been
Yeah, sure.
focusing on Quran a lot more than just the tradition and the living tradition, as you said. But the Quran sort of defines what the role of the messenger is, which is just to deliver the message. So this is the problem that, but I do agree with you. I do agree with the
You see, there
past
is a
tradition.
Hajj has. You see, whether we like it or not, or whether, I mean, we do like it, but let's say even if a person didn't like it,
Yeah,
Hajj has a, like, it has a it's not even, I'm not even going into the purpose of it, but it has a practice, a ritual to it, which is a collective ritual. Now, if I go off and just do Hajj, me and my, I don't know, let's say 5 friends, we go on Hajj. It doesn't fulfill that collective. It's just, we're just going on like our own little thing. That there is a larger than life manifestation and phenomenon. That's it. It has a phenomenon of collectivity that one can't deny that it has that phenomenon. So to say, well, look, I want Hajj, but I just want it, like I tell you what, us 7 will go and we'll go do Hajj whilst, we beat everybody to it. But
let's go on a trip, guys. Let's go. Let's book a ticket and go.
it doesn't quite cut it, it doesn't have that. I get it. I mean, would it really be the same Hajj now? Would it be the Hajj with the capital H? I don't mean from the Islamic
There's a
perspective. I
billion
mean
of
even
us,
from the
Mufti, and
phenomenon.
there's a billion of us, and still like there is only a few months, ashhurun ma'lumat, that you can go. And given the number of Muslims and people that want to go,
You mean if the authorities in Saudi were
yes,
to say, look, I tell you what, we're following this ruling. Okay,
yeah,
that's different. Okay.
yeah,
If, as a hypothetical, let's say many people came together, many Muslim countries, and they said, look, you know what, we know Hajj is in, let's say, uh, we're going to say it's the 8th, 9th, 10th of Dhul Hijjah. However, due to the impracticality of many other people being able to get a spot, we want to now enable the 8th, 9th, and 10th of Dhul Qa'dah to also be a period of Hajj as well. So let's say now all these countries, Muslim countries, had a big, what is it? OIC. It's like, a good friend of mine, Dr. Imran Khan. I've had him on a mind trap before. He's, the OIC, the Muslim, they have that convention, whatever it used to.
oh, I see, yeah,
So he
yeah, yeah.
says,
Oh, yeah,
he says, like, how redundant and useless they are. He'll be like oh, I see. Okay. Oh, I see. The I see. So let's say the Muslim countries got together and they got mashayikh and ulama to rule this ruling, to give this fatwa, to say, yeah, we think this would allow many more. And let's say they did it for 4 months, or they did it for 2 months or 3 months, whatever. But the maqsad was to enable a collective Hajj that otherwise people can't do, because it's just like, let's say it only capacitates for 3 million people. Now, you've got like 2 billion Muslim. Okay, let's say you've got 1 billion wanting to go on Hajj. You can only get a few, tiny fraction going. So yes, if they all came together and did that, I would feel that in that sense they like, if they agreed on doing it, I would hope inshallah that would be okay then. If they
They would
agreed
never
on it
do
like
it.
that. Yeah, but they would never do it, which defeats the
Yeah,
purpose.
of
So
course.
I wouldn't agree on the like, in that case, if they did it, I would believe that, okay, inshallah, I'd hope it would be like, if somebody used to say to me, oh, look, I'm following this ruling now, would my Hajj be valid? I would say, inshallah, it would be then. But if it's not done like that, in a collective global spirit, if it's just like, me and my little WhatsApp group, we're gonna go on Hajj this year, 6 weeks before everybody else goes, I don't believe like that it would be Hajj. Like, I think that's just,
I agree with
it's
you.
playful,
Yeah,
but I don't agree with that as being right.
it wouldn't even feel right, even if it
Yeah, it
was,
wouldn't feel
because
exactly. This is what I'm saying. The real feel of it is missing, because there is
for
a
sure. Yeah.
collective phenomenon of Hajj. Otherwise it's just, it's like, call it whatever you want. And it's like, what does that poet say? He says, he says, "Innana wal ma'u min hawlina كقوم جلوس حولهم ماء." Like, it's just an Egyptian poet where he's not really saying anything. It's just saying, we, as we're here and the water is around us, we're like a people who are sitting with water around them. I mean, it's just saying, it's kind of like
Saying
redundant.
a lot of words that don't make
It's just
sense. So
saying
I
the
get
same
you.
thing. It doesn't really, he says,
Yeah.
what is it? والرجال he says وكل الرجال على العموم مذكر وأما النساء فكلهن نساء.
Captain Obvious.
Yeah, so he's just kind of repeating redundant statements. He's saying, like, men generally, universally, are men, and as to women, then they're always women as well. And it's just like, it's not really saying anything. It's just, yeah, but khair,
No, I get it
yeah,
absolutely, man. Yeah, man.
yeah. Damn.
Inshallah, we live
Well,
long
it's
enough.
been a pleasure, Saif, having you on here,
Thank you,
sharing
Mufti.
your
Thank you
thoughts
very
and
much, man.
reflections. And I hope that's been of
Always
help
an
to other
honor to
people as well.
speak. Inshallah.
Allah
Thank you
bless you.
very much,
Allah
man.
bless you. Take care, man.
Salam
Speak
alaikum.
soon. Assalamu alaikum. Right, people, that was Saif Arawi. What a slick name. Right. So, yeah, some very fascinating, intriguing discussion. Damn, it's gone over 2 hours, people. We're gonna have to wrap this. Somebody said, how do I share a thumbnail I created for you, Universe Today? For me, you naughty. Hopefully, as long as it's a decent thumbnail, then you can. Why don't you reach out to me on Instagram? Oh, I don't know if you can send them here. But if you can't send it here, isn't there like a private chat here? There's a private chat. I don't know how you. Oh, is that only in the studio? Only people in the studio get to do the private chat. So, okay, sure. You could, on Instagram, reach out to me and, yeah, do that. That would be awesome. I'd look forward to it. And, well, stolen, returned, broken piece of black stone. Actually, imagine it collectively. I don't know what is going on there. Miriam, how much did I miss? Well, I take it depends what time you join the live stream. So it's been going now for over 2 hours. Let's wrap this up, people. It's been a pleasure as always. And yeah, I will be doing this more often, inshallah. As John Elia, he has that line where he says, और तो हमने क्या किया लेकिन, says, और तो हमने क्या किया लेकिन ये किया कि दिन गुजारे. Hi, 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 hi. Says, what else have we done, John? He says, but then again, we did this, that we did. We spent our days. Hi, hi, hi. So Allah bless you all. And yeah, I see Claire Jones. Salam. Allah bless you. The awake early. Right. Today we covered a live stream. I think we covered quite a bit. We spoke on the analyzing the events of this weekend have been intriguing. We've also then did a coverage of the debate of Javed Akhtar versus Mufti Shamail. We looked at some of the key arguments they spoke about, explained the classical arguments, the prime mover argument, Aristotelian, the teleological design argument, the cosmological kalam argument of the first cause. We spoke of what contingency was, contingent and existent, necessary existent, and based on contingent realities. So we spoke on that. We did an overview. We spoke on morality. We looked at fairness among species, just different kind of free will argument. I then also shared with you the big five, the modern, which I personally, these are things that I've kind of either formulated. It's not like, these thoughts are out there, but I've kind of, most of them, let's say, of the five, but obviously they're generally out there, but I've kind of formulated them as and see them as the modern big five proofs for the existence of God, if you want to call them proofs, or persuasions or arguments for the for the existence of God. And we went into that, discussing things like the existential intuitive argument, the illusory quantum reality argument, including the Boltzmann brain argument in that, the intelligibility of being, the Wheeler's it from bit argument, and the consciousness being an irreducible fundamental of reality. That these five really do, I think, to really add a flavor to the proof for the existence of God in this day and age, the modern, in addition to the sacredness of human life being, or sacredness as a whole, and then especially anchored in human life, but sacredness as a whole, because otherwise, I don't think atheists can prove anything to be sacred. Yeah, so I think that was a fascinating discussion. And now to kind of wrap it up with this discussion on Hajj, and we really went into the quantum field theory, right? QFT breakdown of fiqh or stroke sharia rulings. Hope that's been of some help. Any of you that need to reach out, more than welcome. You're more than welcome to reach out on Instagram. If you have more in-depth questions that you want to discuss with me on a one-to-one basis, you're more than welcome to go to patreon.com/Malm, and you can select tier 2. That does also allow you to the Discord, but it allows you to book your one-to-one consultation with me. Other than that, wherever you are, take very good care of yourselves. Allah bless you all. May He keep you always smiling, people. Ameen. Salaam Allahi alaikum wa khuda.